I guess I will just introduce you, if I may. So our special guest, which we have not had a special guest here since I think maybe I had a sub one night, but this is a guest, Oren J. Sofer, a spirit rock teacher, author of Say What You Mean, somebody who really kind of specializes, if you will, kind of in working with uh, communication and nonviolent communication through the mindfulness lens. And just has a lot to offer for our community, for any any Dharma community. And I'm just really pleased to have you here, and I really thank you for agreeing to come. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great.
And if you want to say more about yourself,
I think about myself enough of the time.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Kevin,
Yeah.
and good evening, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. Nice to see your smiling faces. There's some familiar faces. Maybe some of us have met on retreats or different groups here or there. I'm speaking to you from Richmond, California, on Ohlone territory here in the San Francisco Bay. I see some folks are spread out around the country, which is sweet to see. So we'll sit together for a little bit. I'll offer just some light guidance, and then we'll see what happens. I don't have anything prepared. We can talk a little bit about our practice and communication and see where it goes. So do whatever helps you to shift gears from kind of this space to being more just with your own direct internal experience. And when I say do whatever helps you shift gears, I mean that in the broadest sense. So both physically, energetically, but then also emotionally or psychologically. What's crowding your mental space or your heart right now that might benefit from some acknowledgement? Just that sense of like, I was just doing dishes after dinner, so there's just a little bit of that energy, just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. Just meet what's here for you. And then what's it like to just acknowledge that, to just be with it for a moment internally. And so for me, when I do that, just the acknowledgement itself, something starts to settle, something starts to wake up and come into a quality of stillness and awareness without even the particular energy, emotion, thought, whatever it is, needing to change. And so then if you can begin to sense or touch that quality of presence, this is very innate, natural, wakeful awareness of the heart-mind. And then to just begin to listen to that and follow it. Something that knows it's awake. There's a vitality, a clarity. Sense of knowing that's here. And then what is it aware of? Aware of sounds. Maybe some predominant sensation. My body happens to be a little warm right now, so just aware of heat. And so whatever your experience is, mentally, physically, emotionally, You can be aware of it. And that knowing, that awareness is not the same as what's happening. And of course, it can be hard to stay with something as subtle as awareness itself, just this quality of knowing. So we use certain techniques, exercises, supports to stay present, to steady ourselves. So maybe noticing the ground beneath you, the length of your spine, connecting earth and sky. And just seeing, sensing what's most accessible for you right now. Maybe just the sounds that are coming and going. Perhaps the sensations of your body or sensations of breath moving. And then instead of an experience of pressure or contraction, kind of trying to force ourselves to do something, see if there can be this friendly and curious invitation. Oh, what's it like to just tune into this a little bit more? Oh, what happens if I just listen, just stay with this? It's almost like observing an animal in the wild. You just get very still and patient, open all of your senses. You don't want to frighten it away. And continuing to incline towards this quality of receptivity, the spirit of friendliness and warmth. And then just taking things one moment at a time. Always willing to begin again with that spirit of curiosity and friendship. And so, depending on how much energy is present for you this evening, how much steadiness there is, you might just be resting your attention with an anchor, like the breath or the body, even the heart. Or if there's enough interest and steadiness, allowing the attention to be more open, just noticing each moment of experience as it comes and as it goes, whether it's a sound, a thought, a sensation, a memory, an image, a smell. And just dropping into the flow, the stream of experience, moment to moment. So in the last few minutes of sitting quietly together, if you like, I just invite you to bring to mind a quality that you would like to cultivate and embody in your relationships more. What's one particular way of being, a quality like patience, kindness, honesty, so forth, that you would like to feel, to have access to rest with in your conversations and relationships? Just listening and see what comes for you. And then whatever you find, whatever particular quality or way of being you would like to embody, cultivate more, I want to suggest that you focus on that quality right now, just for a few moments, however you've known or experienced it in your life. And see if you can touch even the smallest part of that quality right here and now. Can you feel some of it just, just for a few moments? You couldn't even conceive of it if you hadn't experienced it. So there's a part of your heart that already possesses this quality, that knows it. So just opening that space to see if you can touch it for a moment or two. And to whatever degree that's present for you, just tasting it, sensing how that feels inside right now. Shifting gears in your own time, in your own way. And then, if you like, for those who are willing, I'd love to hear what some of those qualities were. You just type it in the chat, whatever that word or phrase was that you touched, that you realized or found was important to you, that you'd like to access in your relationships more. So compassion, self-empathy, trust, patience, kindness, receptivity, acceptance, goodwill, ease, being real, open-mindedness, openness, forgiveness. I just notice what it's like for you to hear these words or see them written out there. Playful, less fear, fearlessness, authenticity, gratitude, seeing the good. That's quite touching, isn't it? I think we know what we want. if we get quiet a little bit and just listen, we have a sense of what's important to us and what we value, how we want to show up in our lives, what we want to bring into the world energetically through our actions, through our words, through our way of being. I don't know about you, but there's something inside of me just reading these words and seeing them, hearing them. It never fails to move me. It's such a beautiful and touching vision of what's possible for us as human beings. And so one of the great insights that the Buddha had so many thousands of years ago was that this is possible for all of us, for each of us. That the very way consciousness functions, the way our minds are constructed, are malleable. It's not fixed. This is tremendously good news for all of us, right? You know, whatever it is that you work with, whether it's anger or pettiness or lust, you know, self-hatred. I mean, all of these really icky states that are so harmful, so painful and detrimental to our own well-being and the well-being of our loved ones, our communities, that they're not fixed. They're just patterns. They're just different energies. And that through practice, through intentional cultivation, we can transform those. We can steer. In other words, we can steer in our life. And one of the great fallacies that our society kind of foists upon us is the false belief that we can steer externally much more than we actually can, right? This is external circumstances is a lot is out of our control. But the inner world, in terms of what we bring forth into our lives, how we show up, how we relate to the immense tragedy of life and its heartbreaking beauty, all of that is really, really open. And this practice gives us a method, it gives us tools, it gives us a whole set of practices to tinker, to shape, to align and steer the inner realms of the heart and the mind, which play such a large role in how we experience the world and what we bring forth. So this is key, this understanding in any form of contemplative practice. And the key question that one of the key questions that the Buddhist path answers in relation to this list of qualities here that we're seeing on our screen, one of the key questions the Buddhist practice answers is how, right? Oh, it's great. Let's be more open. Let's be more forgiving. Let's be more fearless, be more compassionate. Oh, wonderful. How do you do that when someone's laying into you or they don't return your calls or, you know, they say one thing and do something else? So, so the path gives us a practical manual, so to speak, for how to not let these intentions just be wishful thinking. One of the most powerful arenas in terms of cultivation of wholesome mind states, one of the most powerful arenas for this is speech. and the domain of relationship that much of our speech arises in. And so this too is another kind of important insight that the Buddha had that's embedded in the structure of the teachings. You look at the Noble Eightfold Path, and right there, the very next factor of training after the wisdom factors, Noble Eightfold Path starts with right view. How are you looking at things? Get your head straight, don't be too confused and fanciful, like stay grounded, what's happening, and align your view with the Buddha's teachings of cause and effect, suffering, nature. And then intention, where you're coming from, what's your motivation, how you're orienting to life. These are teachings on wisdom. The very next thing the Buddha points to is speech. Before meditation, speech. Pay attention to what you say. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself, how you talk to others, how you listen. So I think the Buddha understood very clearly the power that language has. And it's quite fascinating for any of you who have spent any time contemplating language, studying, reading, whether it's linguistics, philosophy, religion. Language has the power to affect our experience and to shape our reality, right? Someone says something and there's this whole reaction, whether it's joyful and, delightful, or cringing and angry and tortured. In response to what? Some sounds? Wow, that's pretty powerful, right? And you look at history and you see how language is used to manipulate entire populations, to fuel genocide, war, torture. Immensely powerful. Because it goes right in. It touches the mind. It's part of the way the mind structures reality, is through perception, through meaning. So words affect our relationships, and they shape the way we view the world. And so this other insight, another insight that the Buddha had that's embedded in the teachings, is that we can practice with our language. That the very conversations we have every day, those that drivel of thought that's running through our mind in the background most of the time, that can actually become an arena for spiritual cultivation. So I've been exploring this domain for many years now, and there's a lot, of course, that can be said. The first thing that I always like to point out and teach is that if we're interested in using our communication as a form of spiritual practice, if we're interested in incorporating that into our path, as the Buddha suggested, if we're interested in having more meaningful conversations, if we're interested in improving the quality of our relationships in life, personally and professionally, just across the board. If we're interested in working for social change, for having more leverage in our communities and our nations, at the very first step, the kind of fundamental foundation of any of it is learning how to be more present and aware when we are speaking and listening, which is a lot easier to say than to do for anyone who's ever tried. We have this very strong tendency as soon as there are words coming out of our mouth to somehow disappear and disconnect from our whole body, sometimes even from the other person, which is quite ironic when you think about it. You can be talking to someone and actually completely oblivious to them. And if you've ever had the experience of someone talking at you, right? We know what that feels like on the other side. And yet, what's the reverse? So if you and I were having a cup of tea and I came in real close and I said, "How are you? What's going on? How you been?" And I just listen, I just show up, We feel it. We really feel it when someone gives us their full attention, right? It says something very powerful. That you and this conversation is important enough to me that I'm willing to give you one of my most precious resources: time, attention, energy, that which I can't get back. I can't get back the time I spend in my life. So this is one area of training that all of us can explore. So just see, what's it like to try to be more aware when you're speaking or when you're listening to really listen, to not be planning what you're going to say next and coming up with your argument or refuting their points, be, doing your shopping list or whatever else. And when speaking, to begin to explore, where can I anchor my attention? Can I feel my body? Can I slow down a little bit? What's it like to pause? Notice the breath that's animating the speech. We're very good at practicing mindfulness of breathing. Good at practicing it, not good at doing it necessarily, but coming back to the breath again and again. Well, speech is breath, right? Unless you're signing or writing, it's animated by breath. So all these can be anchors for us in beginning to develop more awareness and presence with our communication. And then as that foundation just starts to begin to open up, so you sort of start to feel at least some sense of like, oh, I'm here in the conversation, like awake actually with you. Now we can actually start to explore. Then you start to be aware of your intentions. Where are you coming from? What's driving how you're showing up in this conversation? Are we aware of our motivations? This is a huge domain of Buddhist practice because this is where karma is created. This is what's determining the ethical valence of our actions and how we're showing up in the world. Am I moving from fear, from anger, from defensiveness, from blame, from judgment, from reactivity, from defensiveness? Am I coming from love, from curiosity, from all of these beautiful qualities that you mentioned, from patience, from acceptance, from gratitude? And so again, from the foundation of presence, mindfulness begins, the domains of mindfulness begin to open, where we can establish mindfulness, one of those being the domain of the mind, the heart, and the qualities of intention that are arising. What's so powerful about this in communication is that, again, so much of our communication is not in the words we say, right? How someone's showing up, if they're listening to you, we can feel that, we can tell that. Not only that, but we start to get an energetic read on where someone's coming from, right? When the body language and the words don't match, we tend to trust the body language more. We tend to rely on our intuition, our emotions. I don't know, that person is just something about them. It doesn't quite feel right. Can't quite put my finger on it. Yeah, she was smiling the whole time, but I don't think she likes me. What's that about? We're picking up on other signals. So right speech and skillful communication, yes, words have power, and it's really important to begin to understand how to use this miraculous, potent medium of communication, of forming language and exchanging ideas and meaning. And fundamentally, what creates the flow of meaning and exchange energetically, relationally, is something underneath the words. It's the intention, the emotion that's animating the speech. So this is the second area of training that I generally share with people. The first is training in presence, learn how to show up. I think we'll talk about this as leading with presence. Let that be the first thing you do. How do I actually arrive and keep coming back? And then second, come from curiosity and care. These are the two of the core intentions we bring into our meditation practice. Curiosity is interest, Dhamma Vijaya, the quality of investigation. Care is metta, kindness. We need that quality of warmth to be with the intensity and the hardship of life. Otherwise, we can't make it. So bring those qualities into our conversations and relationships. How? By practice, through mindfulness, remembering that intention, coming back to it again and again. And then from those foundations, we can begin to explore the incredibly rich, dynamic, and complex terrain of human interaction and meaning, the different emotions that are flowing, and most importantly, the different values or needs or objectives. What's actually important to us? What matters to this person? And this is where we start to have the most potential to discover common ground with one another. Is not in the ideas, the views, the beliefs, or even the actions that we undertake in our lives, but the reasons behind them. And this is a kind of very core foundational premise, not only to Buddhist practice, but to the whole field of humanistic psychology and many other forms of healing, which is that human beings' nature fundamentally is to long for happiness and well-being. None of us want to suffer. And all of us are doing the best we can with what we have to try to be satisfied. And that when we can start to tune into that aspect of a person, we can start to see them in a different light. We can see actions that are harmful, views that are abhorrent or dangerous. We can start to see, not to justify them, but we can see the humanity underneath it. We can see something in this person's heart that we connect with. It says, I see this person wants to belong. I see this person wants to feel powerful, wants to have a voice. I see this person wants to honor their history and their tradition. That's something I can connect with, even though I disagree with how they're going about it. Even though I may not value their tradition, I can understand that longing for lineage and place. So we train ourselves. This is a training in attention. It's a training in learning how to see the world in a different way. And this is a foundation for empathy, for compassion, and through that for skillful communication. So I've been speaking fairly conceptually here. My hope is mostly in this short session to inspire in you the sense of possibility and interest in starting to tinker a little bit with this aspect of your life. There's so much that can be learned. For those who would like to learn more, there's lots of information on my website, my YouTube channel, longer talks, articles. Kevin mentioned my book. So I think in the time remaining, the only reason I'm able to do this is because I made a very firm commitment with my partner on Friday night that I would end by 8 o'clock California time. She said jokingly she would beat me up if I stayed any longer. So I'm going to honor that agreement. So in the time that we have remaining, I thought we could shift gears and just, oh, hey, Walt, nice to see you. I saw my friend Walt there. Cool. Thought we could shift gears and see if there are any questions about anything I've shared or right speech or how to apply some of this stuff I've been talking about in a particular situation. So if you have a question, you could raise your virtual hand or wave at me if your camera's on, or type in the chat. I'm quite happy to take live questions verbally or in writing. Thank you, Angela, who's putting my website in there. And yeah, if you're interested, there's other kind of courses, online courses and trainings and stuff in communication coming up, but I'll leave that to you to check out on my website if you're interested. So what's up? What else would you like to explore together, or ask or hear about? How do I deal with my brother-in-law? He's such a pain in the he always does this. Or right speech says, say that which is truthful, helpful, kind, and timely. But what about when ... I see you moving, so I know my internet connection is working. What would you? I can keep rambling if you'd like. I can talk about this stuff for hours.
Yeah, people can be shy sometimes on here.
I can totally relate.
I wonder if you, this might not be something you want to get into, but we had that kind of little back and forth a little bit about that
Mm-hmm.
training we were in, where talking about kind of specific words that might trigger people that you don't realize it's going to trigger them, or you're meaning it in a different way, and how to deal with that in these kind of sometimes fraught situations where people are really almost looking for to kind of challenge you, maybe, or looking for some it's an exaggeration, not fair to say they're trying to be
Yeah.
triggered, but
Well, yeah, happy to comment on that. I mean, just to, if folks are unclear what Kevin's talking about, is this whole sort of aspect of our society right now that's grappling with these issues around harm, history of harm in our nation and the world, colonialism, imperialism, enslavement, and the tension and the lines between kind of honoring one another and the unique experiences that we all have in our lives, how those differ based on our social location, skin color, gender, identity, and so forth. And how some of those forces can move into more repressive or restricted expressions of political correctness, or the whole debate about free speech. So, for me, I think the two things that are most important, two or three things that are most important about this. So, example of, okay, I say something and then I get some feedback from someone, hey, that's effed up, that's racist, that's sexist, or that really triggered me. I feel really upset that you said that in that way. I think the first and most important thing is staying connected to empathy and recognizing that regardless of what I did or said, or, the various web of conditions, right? We look at this through a Buddhist lens. We recognize that everything is due to different causes and conditions. No one person or action causes anything. There's a whole matrix of causality and conditions that lead to the arising of any experience. So am I saying something that stimulates pain in someone else? Obviously, I want to take responsibility for my actions, and it's a much larger web of conditions. Regardless of all of that, if someone else is in pain, and if they're in pain in relation to something I did or said, regardless of all that, I want to show up and be compassionate. As much as I can, I want to have empathy because someone's in pain. Regardless of the cause of the pain, even if it's self-created, I still would, my value, my way of being in the world, I want to do my best to respond with empathy in whatever way I can. So that for me, that's one of the first and most important things, is how can I regulate my own reactivity, defensiveness, whatever's going on for me, and respond with empathy. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was really painful for you. Tell me more. Or whatever the response is. I can, recognizing this thing that you just said and this other circumstances I was unaware of, I can really see how that would be hard for you. I want to just show some understanding and respect and empathy for that person's experience. That's number one. Number two, and this is a little bit the conversation Kevin's referring to that he and I had after this training. I think we're at, this is just a personal view, not unique to me, but I think we're at a place in our evolution socially around issues of histories of harm and oppression where there's a deep need that has been unmet for so long for acknowledgement of pain. And real harm, that kind of the moment we're in, it's like that's the most important thing, it seems, in most contexts. And other aspects of that's not what I meant. Well, don't you think you're being a little sensitive? Right? That kind of a statement, that sort of suggestion of like, well, what are you bringing to this? There isn't space for that really because it's not the right time. So for me, when I think about those aspects, and in social justice circles, this often gets talked about as difference between intent and impact. For me, what the second value that I'm holding that's most important for me is how do we move forward as a society, as a community, in a relationship? What kinds of behaviors, what kinds of energies and intentions are going to allow the conversation to move forward? And so for me, I'm wanting to hold a much larger view, a much longer view than just this one conversation, and recognize, well, if I can show up with empathy, I can be understanding, and I can get my own needs met for understanding at another time or in another place, I might be able to contribute to a larger trajectory because I'm actually starting to embody the very qualities of understanding, belonging, seeing the humanity in one another that provides a way forward. Right? As soon as I start arguing, blocking, no, that's not what I meant, you're being unreasonable, I think that's your trauma speaking. What am I doing? Well, forget about the particular relationship and how that's going to deteriorate. What am I doing in the long run in terms of society and community is I'm not actually embodying the world I want to see. So for me, that's the second value that's really important, is how can I show up in a way that's beginning to actually create the world that I want to live in? And that's sowing the seeds for a quality of resilience and respect and mutuality that's actually viable as kind of like a fabric in society and community for healing and collaboration and forward movement. And that's not to invalidate other perspectives on what's happening, but for me, it's holding it in a larger context. Yeah. Is there anything you'd want to add to that, Kevin?
I don't think so. I just really appreciate you, wrestling with these ideas like in public, actually, because I think it's, that's why I was a little hesitant to sort of ask you to do that. But I appreciate you because I do think that these are challenging questions, and just as you say, the importance of really the corrective that we are in has to be prioritized at this point.
Yeah. I see a couple of questions here in the chat. Yeah. So Cookie Murphy Petty is writing in about how to understand why some individuals refuse to see how their decision to not wear a mask in public affects us all. Yeah, it's complex, right? So when I put my attention on that situation, I try to say, okay, well, what's important to this person? Obviously, choice, autonomy is really important to them, but I'm guessing that I want to see the good in others, and I want to assume good intent, right? I think there's very few people who, in their right mind, consciously go around wanting to harm people, being like, I will now harm you. We have to be disturbed with anger or pain. The other forces need to be present for that to occur. So I'm then assuming for this person that they actually don't share the view. They don't have the information that maybe I have or you have that says, hey, if you don't wear a mask, someone else might die. Like, that connection isn't present. So that's how I'm understanding it. I'm seeing this person and I'm choosing to believe. I can't imagine this person would truly have that information, believe it's valid, and choose to not wear a mask. So that's how I'm making sense of it. And we could obviously talk about why there's that disconnect in information, and that's a much larger conversation, right, about our society and the media and so forth. Abigail up in Eugene, I've been experiencing speaker's remorse almost always after I talk to anyone. I know it's partly being overly self-conscious. I find myself vowing not to talk at all, and then talking, and then being remorseful. That sounds difficult, Abigail. Thank you for sharing. And I'm guessing many of us can relate to that experience, right, of regretting having said something, or the kind of endless mirrors and echo chambers in the mind of, why could I be so stupid, and how did I say that, and what was I thinking? And we can really torture ourselves. So there's a lot there to explore, but I think perhaps one place to start that might be very helpful is to just, as that voice comes in that's starting to beat you up a little bit, see if you can step back from it a little bit. You don't have to stop it necessarily, and just say, what matters to you? What's really important to you? Because it's trying to help, right? It wants to keep you safe in some way. Angela, could you mute Gail? Gail, thank you. It's trying to keep you safe in some way. It wants to make sure that you belong, that you're seen in a positive light. It's wanting to preserve your dignity, perhaps, right? So even though it's coming out in this very cruel, self-judgmental way, there's something in it that's connected to a healthy, wholesome value. So see if you can start to listen for that and identify it, and then have some tenderness for that voice that says, oh, wow, you're really trying to protect me. You really want to keep me safe. You really want to make sure, what? Fill in the blank. What does it want to make sure of? See if you can connect with that. And then now what's happening is you're starting to have a relationship with that voice. Instead of running away from it, fearing it, fighting it, this whole practice is about coming into relationship with reality. And so one aspect of reality is that particular pattern, that particular voice in your mind. So see if you can start to come into relationship with it, to understand it, what's it saying to you. And then from there, you can start to work with your intentions of how you show up and what you say, and then to kind of check, like, well, will this meet that need? So that's a little bit, Abigail. I hope it's helpful. There's a lot more we can explore if we have more
my
time.
computer says it's 8:01.
Yes.
And I don't want to see any violence happening
No.
in Richmond.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oren, thank you so much for doing this. Really, really, really good for me. I'm sure this group was really enjoyed it as much as I did. That was really great to hear from you, and
Thank you.
a real treat. So
yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And I just put the link for Donna also in the chat there. That'll go to a page on my website that has all of the links directly. So if anyone would like to offer a contribution, you can do that there. And yes, thanks, Angela. I do have an email list, and I send out a note every couple of weeks with a short reflection. And I would be happy to stay in touch that way if anyone would like. So many blessings to each of you. Stay safe. Please be well. Keep well. And hope to see you down the line. And thank you so much for the invitation to join, Kevin.
Oren, our pleasure. Thanks, man. Good night.
All right. Good night, all.